Hello, this is Judy, and for the next hour, I will be reading from the January 19th, 2026 issue of the Toronto Star on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. I will do my best to pronounce all names correctly, yet please forgive me if I do not. Our first article is titled Doug Ford Calls on Carney to Step Up to Help Ontario's Auto Sector After Chinese EV Deal. Ford is asking Ottawa to remove its EV mandate, harmonize regulations with trading partners, and scrap unnecessary fees that drive away investment. And there's a picture of Ontario Premier Doug Ford, and the caption reads, Ontario Premier Doug Ford has said he is extremely disappointed in the federal government decision to lower tariffs on Chinese EVs. And Carlos Osorio, Osorio, of the Canadian Press took this, and this is a photo, and it's a file photo. This article is written by Robert Benzie, who is the Queen's Park Bureau Chief. As Prime Minister Mark Carney moves to allay concerns about lifting tariffs on Chinese EVs, Premier Doug Ford says Ottawa needs to step up to protect Ontario's auto industry. Speaking to Rural Ontario Municipal Association Conference delegates at the Sheraton Centre on Monday, Ford reiterated his alarm at Carney's new agreement with China. Canada will allow up to 49,000 Chinese EVs here at a tariff rate of 6.1%, down from the 100% set by former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in 2024 to match the then U.S. President Joe Biden's levies in exchange for Beijing cutting counter tariffs on Canadian canola and seafood. I want to take a moment here to address the federal government's decision to reduce tariffs on Chinese-made electric vehicles, Ford told the annual convention of hundreds of rural politicians. I'm extremely disappointed by this decision, which will directly impact our auto workers and the supply chains that support them, including in many rural areas, he said. The Premier, who is politically close to Carney, expressed hope the Liberal government would help the domestic auto sector, which is a significant driver of Ontario's economy. I've made my position very clear to the Prime Minister, and I'm doing so again today because we need to be doing everything we can to support our auto workers, said Ford, who worked closely with Trudeau to secure billions in production incentives for Stellantis, Stellantis, and Volkswagen to build EVs and batteries in Ontario. The federal government needs to step up by removing its EV mandate, harmonizing regulations with our trading partners, and scrapping unnecessary fees that drive away investment. Last September, Carney paused the requirement for 20% of vehicles sold in Canada in 2026 to be electric, and his government is now considering next steps. Currently, the target for EV sales here is 60% of all new vehicles by 2030 and 100% by 2035. But that's expected to be adjusted downward due to the dipping market demand for EVs. Over the week in Doha, D-O-H-A, Qatar, after his Chinese visit, the Prime Minister said there's no downside to again allowing Chinese EVs into the Canadian market. Carney noted he has only agreed to allow imports of the same number of EVs brought here in 2023 from China, although at the time there wasn't a cap. Now there's a cap. Federal officials have said the number could grow depending on whether Chinese automakers agree to invest in Canadian-based production. While Carney publicly said the cap could rise to 70,000 Chinese EVs annually within 5 years, his officials later clarified there is no escalator clause in the accord. The Prime Minister pointed out the number of imports he's willing to allow here is relatively small, less than 3% of the 1.8 million vehicle market for cars and trucks in Canada every year. Ford told rural delegates, too, remember this speech when the Chinese swamp Ontario's EV market with artificially cheap cars and trucks. Once the camel gets his head in a tent, his whole body's in the tent, and you aren't getting rid of them, he said, saying he found it ironic the Prime Minister is using a burner phone and all the staff over in China, but we're making a deal with Beijing. It's Huawei, H-A-U-W-E-I 2.0, to come back into Canada, and we get nothing but potential job losses in our factories right across the board, the Premier said, referring to the Chinese telecom giant that Canada banned from its 5G cell networks in 2022 due to national security concerns. While Ford has been outspoken about an arrangement he derided Friday as a terrible, miscalculated decision, other premiers have hailed the deal, which helped canola farmers and seafood producers. Saskatchewan Scott Moe said it was a very positive signal that will restore existing trade volumes and open avenues for further opportunities for Canadians. Newfoundland and Labrador Premier Tony Wakeham noted his province is a significant Canadian seafood exporter to China, so this is welcome news for our coastal communities. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith said trade tariffs are harmful and only serve to raise consumer prices, limit choice and innovation, and damage businesses and producers. So Friday's agreement was welcome. Robert Benzie is the Star's Queen Parks Bureau Chief and reporter covering Ontario politics. This next article is titled, Boost Your Blue Monday Mood with 5 Hacks Toronto Experts Swear By. From reconsidering comfort foods to gorging on natural light, these tips help mental health researchers get through darkest January. And Blue Monday is the third Monday in January, known as the bleakest day of the year. And this article is written by Sarah Lang, L-A-I-N-G, special to the Star. Blue Monday is upon us, and while the catchily named saddest day of the year was originally concocted by a travel company to sell sunny holidays, there's a reason it's gained traction. If you live in the Northern Hemisphere, the third Monday is the darkest, coldest. January is objectively grim. We're emotionally and financially depleted from the holidays, bearing the toxic Q1 mix of misplaced optimism and outsized self-pressure. And that's before you pile on the existential burdens of the state of the world right now. The idea of World War III being tossed around, frighteningly convincing AI making the very fabric of reality feel slippery. If you're furiously double tapping on all those social media soothsayers claiming the new lunar year will usher in magical change and rapid improvement with the arrival of the year of the horse in February, you're not alone. So what can we do to get through these dark days? We've tapped 2 well-being experts for their practical, concrete tips, tried and tested things they actually do to boost their own mood. Here's what they suggested. Resist the urge to nap. For all our gene editing technology and AIs that can write screenplays, humans are working with the same basic biology as a grizzly bear. The lack of daylight and where we live, sunlight more specifically, affects our bodies and our brains in very particular ways, says clinical psychologist Dr. Dana Breacher, positive psychology scholar in residence at Toronto Metropolitan University. There's a serotonin drop, a melatonin increase, our circadian rhythm shift. These are physiological things that are not within our control. What is in our control are the choices we make. One such choice is to resist our inner hibernating bear, which is essentially what we become when winter hits in the Northern Hemisphere. You're in a cave, you're sleeping most of the time, you're not socializing, Breacher said. What you have to do is make a concerted effort to not do those things. Specifically, resist the urge to take naps in the afternoon, said Breacher. You're actually depriving yourself of daylight, and you're increasing the likelihood that you go to bed later and sleep later. Go towards the light. Maximizing your exposure to light is key. Breacher, who worked on a study looking into the positive effect of light on mood over 30 years ago, is fanatical about making sure she gets enough light exposure. That means I'm sitting near a window if I'm inside and making sure I go for walks outside even when the weather isn't good, she said. Even if it's gray and gloomy, you're still getting an increase in your serotonin and a decrease in your melatonin. Crudely speaking, that's your happy hormone going up and the one that controls when you sleep going down. If your environment doesn't allow for much natural light exposure, say you often leave for work and come home in the dark, Dr. Andrea Iaboni, Iaboni, a geriatric psychiatrist and senior scientist at UHN's KITE, K-I-T-E, Research Institute, can sympathize. Because I'm a busy physician, I can often not see the sun at all, she said. I often use light therapy in the morning to help me reset my natural rhythm. She'll often have breakfast sitting next to a therapy lamp, especially a very bright light that mimics the sun. If I do morning exercise, I might set it up in front of my exercise bike instead. Reconsider comfort foods. It gives us no pleasure to say this, but the comfort foods we crave in winter could be contributing to our January blues. Even though you're craving pasta and chocolate, those things that give you quick energy go towards the Mediterranean diet, said Breacher. Salad, vegetables, healthy things will help. Her January menu looks like yogurt, fruit, and granola for breakfast. Lunch is salad with a protein like an egg or tuna, and dinner will be protein and vegetables, maybe in the form of a hearty soup. Iaboni also avoids too many carbs and is conscious about getting enough vitamin D because low levels can be linked to mood. We don't make much vitamin D in our bodies in the winter because it depends upon sunlight, she said. I try to either get vitamin D rich foods, trout, salmon, oily fish, or foods that have vitamin D added to them like milk or yogurt. She also takes a vitamin D supplement every day. If you're 50 or older, you should take 400 units of vitamin D3, she said, citing the Health Canada guidelines. They say if you're younger than 50 and you don't get a lot of dietary vitamin D, you should probably also supplement with about 400 units. Schedule fun, ideally with a friend. Iaboni knows that she'll have less motivation to go out and do things in the winter, so she plans for that ahead of time. I'm very purposeful about finding activities that I enjoy and making sure that I schedule them into my routine, she said. I will sign up for exercise or art classes, things that I know, once scheduled, will motivate me to stay busy and active. This January, she's committed to twice weekly gym class and cooking classes. Crucially, these aren't solo pursuits. We know that social activity, in particular group activity, is important because they give structure, purpose, and stimulate your brain in a positive way, she said. Bonus points if a group activity involves exercise. Iaboni says research shows just 20 minutes of physical activity can have antidepressant effects. When people shut down and hibernate for the winter and don't do these activities, that's when mood can really start to drop. It doesn't have to be complicated. Breacher has a long-standing weekly catch-up with a friend. Oftentimes, we're not even in the same place, but we'll go on the phone and go for a walk and talk to each other, she said. Make sure you don't give up on things you love, whether that's your book club or volunteering or reformer Pilates, just because it's cold out. Keep doing the things that sustain you and make you feel like life is worth living, Breacher said. The instinct is to pull back, but the best way forward is to just keep your life going. Let music and books transport you. For the days when you just can't face the -30 and black ice, make it a priority to do things that you enjoy. I'm always in a novel, says Breacher, who most recently enjoyed Code of Justice, in quotes, by Stacey Abrams. For someone else, that might be playing a musical instrument or art or their favorite show. Whatever it is, build in and count upon the things you really love to do and look forward to them. If all else fails, make a playlist. I have a high energy music that I associate with specific times in my life that were really quite powerful, wonderful. I just play them and it's very uplifting, Breacher said. Music can be a pathway to feeling just a little lighter, more hopeful. Avoid doom scrolling. For the January darkness, that has more to do with the terrifying state of the world around us. Compartmentalization is how Breacher copes. I have a very curious mind, but don't want to know things all the time, she said. I'll read the news, listen to podcasts, and then I put it away and I focus on the gratitude I have for living in this beautiful world. Ayabani actually puts physical guardrails into place to prevent doom scrolling. I do have screen time limits on my phone for any apps where I'm at risk of falling down a hole, she said. My time limit is 15 minutes, enough time to find out what's happening in the world, but it just stops me from looking for more and more bad news. Even as you take steps to help yourself feel better, don't feel bad for feeling bad. Be patient with yourself. You're not going to suddenly snap out of your blues, says Ayabani. Make positive steps gradually, and you'll find your mood will improve gradually. There's not a light switch to turn your mood on and off. And Sarah Lang is a Toronto-based freelance contributor for The Star, writing about celebrity and culture. This next article is about the World Cup, and the title is Toronto to host Canadian men's soccer team for 2 friendlies ahead of World Cup. Report. Canada is expected to play Tunisia and Iceland in March as it prepares for the World Cup. And this article is written by Christian Lautens, and that's KRISTJANLAUTENS, who's a staff reporter. The Canadian men's national soccer team is expected to play 2 international friendlies in Toronto in late March as the squad prepares for the World Cup in June. The Canadians, according to a report from TSN, will play Tunisia, which has qualified for the World Cup and sits 41st in global rankings, and Iceland, which ranks 74th but did not qualify. Haiti will also reportedly travel to Toronto to play against the two countries, allowing every team to have 2 games during the international window. Canada Soccer has not confirmed the report publicly nor responded to a request for comment from the Star. The games could serve as Captain Alphonso Davies' first match for Canada since he tore his ACL during the CONCACAF Nations League in March 2025. Davies returned for his club team, Bayern Munich, in December after rehabbing the injury for 262 days. Canada Soccer recently announced the men's club will also play Uzbekistan, and that's Uzbekistan, in a tune-up game in Edmonton at the beginning of June, before one last friendly in Montreal, though the opponent has yet to be determined. The World Cup kicks off on June 11th in Canada, the U.S. and Mexico, though Canada will start its tournament in Toronto in June 12th against champions of the UEFA Path A playoff, which is between Bosnia and Herzegovina, Herzegovina, Italy, North Ireland, and Wales. Canada will then play Qatar on June 18th and Switzerland on June 24th in Vancouver. Christian Lautens is the staff reporter for the Star. He can be reached at KLAUTENS at symbol thestar.ca. This next article is an opinion article. The title is "The Carney Government is About to Give Up a Vital Bit of Sovereignty. Worst, it could harm Canadians' health." And it's a proposed change in how Health Canada approves medications may rely on America or other foreign regulators rather than Health Canada's own scientists. And this is articles written by Matthew Herder, who's a contributor. And Matthew Herder is an applied public health chair and professor of Dalhousie, Dalhousie University. Decades ago, Canada relied on the United States for its supply of life-saving blood products, and the results were catastrophic. Yet despite tensions between our two countries today, we're on the cusp of relying on U.S. oversight of health products all over again, risking another public health disaster. The, in quotes, tainted blood crisis is perhaps our worst public health failure of the past 50 years. During the early 1980s, the Canadian Red Cross elected to import blood and blood products from south of the border with the blessing of the U.S. government, specifically the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. But for cost-cutting reasons, testing for hepatitis C, HIV, and other blood-borne pathogens was not performed, even though the blood products were sourced from high-risk populations in the U.S. Over 30,000 Canadians were infected with hepatitis C, and 2,000 more contracted HIV. Only after the Curver Commission of Inquiry issued its report years later was the Canadian blood system fully reformed to ensure that cost-cutting measures would not come at the expense of Canadian safety. Facing an economic outlook that rivals the recession of the late 1970s, the Carney government has imposed 15% budget cuts across nearly all federal departments while introducing a range of measures to reduce government spending. One that appeared in the Canadian Gazette just before the holiday break would, if implemented, see Health Canada's role in reviewing new drugs seeking to enter the Canadian market reduced to rubber stamping decisions already made by a foreign regulator, such as the US FDA, rather than testing the evidence of each new drug safety. Sound familiar? The details of the proposal are so far scant. We don't know what foreign regulators Health Canada will rely upon, nor what types of new drugs will be eligible to go through this streamlined regulatory process. It's also not clear how often this procedure will be used once put into place, but it's potentially a landmark change to Canadian drug regulation, which has the potential to fast-track the entry of new drugs of questionable safety and value, yet with high prices into Canada. As an example of what is at stake, take Acadam, it's ADUCANUMAB, approved by US FDA in 2021 for the treatment of Alzheimer's disease. After conducting their own reviews, both Health Canada and the European Medicines Agency turned the drug down, concluding that serious safety issues of brain swelling and bleeding outweighed the limited evidence that aducanumab worked to arrest Alzheimer's symptoms. If what's being proposed in the Canada Gazette now was in place back then, aducanumab might have entered the Canadian market without Health Canada's scientific reviewers ever looking at the evidence behind the drug. Creating a legally binding pathway whereby new drugs can enter Canada based on foreign regulatory decisions is hard to square with the federal health minister's recent remarks that U.S. government institutions, including U.S. FDA, are no longer reliable. Even if the proposal doesn't lead to reliance on the American regulator but other foreign authorities, there are massive risks with outsourcing responsibility for new drug reviews. over time, it could gut our regulators' scientific expertise. Reviewers at Health Canada remember the Creever inquiry, and they are worried about how they would meet their duty of care to the Canadian public when they simply rubber stamp decisions on foreign bodies as opposed to looking under the hood. Our scientific reviewers don't generally moonlight in industry like many at US FDA. But why would they stay in government when their expertise is no longer valued? Maintaining the capacity of our regulatory system is a national security issue. The Carney government should shelve this proposal to avoid harms to Canadians that might come from inviting new drugs tainted by weak oversight into the U.S. in Canada. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Toronto Star on the Niagara Frontier radio reading service. This next article is under sports, and it's about the NFL. The title is Bills Fire Coach Sean McDermott After 9 Seasons of Falling Short of Reaching the Super Bowl. McDermott's tenure ends after 9 seasons in which he transformed the franchise into a perennial winner, but was knocked for failing to make a Super Bowl appearance. And there's a picture of Sean McDermott, and the caption read, former Buffalo Bills head coach Sean McDermott leaves the field after an NFL divisional round playoff football game against the Denver Broncos Wednesday, January 17th, 2024 in Denver. Okay, this photo was taken by David Zalbrowski, Zalubowski of the AP. And this article is written by John Wawrow, Wawrow, of the Associated Press. Orchard Park. The Buffalo Bills fired coach Sean McDermott on Monday after the team failed again to reach a Super Bowl in his 9 seasons. The move came 2 days after the Bills were eliminated in a heart-wrenching 33-30 overtime loss at Denver in the divisional round of the playoffs. Quote, Sean has helped change the mindset of this organization and was instrumental in the Bills becoming a perennial playoff team, said owner Terry Pegula. But I feel we are in need of a new structure within our leadership to give these organizations the best opportunity to take our team to the next level. As part of the new structure, Pegula announced he was promoting General Manager Brandon Beane to President of Football Operations. Beane, who has also completed his 9th season in Buffalo, will oversee the coaching search. The Bills went 12-5 in the regular season and saw their 5-year run atop the AFC East end, finishing second behind the New England Patriots. Buffalo became the NFL's first team to win a playoff round in 6 consecutive years, but not reach the Super Bowl. McDermott's firing is the latest of what's become a seismic shift in the NHL's coaching ranks this offseason. He became the 10th head coach to lose his job, joining a respected group that includes Baltimore's John Harbaugh and Pittsburgh's Mike Tomlin. Harbaugh has been since hired by the New York Giants. The 51-year-old McDermott finished with a 98-50 regular season record and was 8-8 wins, 8 losses in the playoffs, ranking second on the team list in wins behind Hall of Fame coach Mark Levy, who had 112-7 in regular season and 11-8 in playoffs. Levy did so over 11 seasons during a tenure that included the Jim Kelly-led team reaching and losing 4 straight Super Bowls in the early 1990s. McDermott's failure to reach the Super Bowl with Josh Allen at quarterback became his undoing. Though Allen has broken many of Kelly's passing and scoring records, the Bills have advanced to the AFC Championship game just twice and lost both times to Kansas City during a team record 7-year playoff run. The loss Saturday to the Broncos was a crushing blow, with Allen nearly inconsolable at the post-game podium, blaming himself for an outing in which he threw 2 interceptions and lost 2 fumbles. McDermott rallied to Allen's defense, saying the loss wasn't on the quarterback. And then the usually calm coach showed his emotions when questioning the official's ruling on Allen's second interception, which ended Buffalo's lone possession in overtime. Receiver Brandon Cooks came down with Allen's deep pass, but had it wrestled out of his hands by Jaquan McMillan. Officials ruled McMillan had the ball before Cooks was down by contact, and Denver was awarded the turnover at its 20. McDermott, who was a member of the NFL's competition committee overseeing rules, believes Cooks came down with the ball, and he was also dismayed over why officials took little time to review the play. "I'm standing up for Buffalo, damn it. I'm standing up for us," McDermott said. "The guys spent 3 hours out there playing football, pouring their guts out, to not even say, hey, let's slow this thing down. That's why I'm bothered." Buffalo's last 3 playoff losses have all been decided by 3 points, and 3 of McDermott's playoff losses ended in overtime. That includes a 42-36 loss to Kansas City in the 2021 divisional round that's been dubbed the 13 seconds, the amount of time Patrick Mahomes had to complete 2 passes for 44 yards and set up Harrison Butker's tying 49-yard field goal on the final play of regulation. Despite his playoff inconsistencies, McDermott oversaw a team that won 10 or more regular season games over 7 straight seasons, including 2 team record-matching 13-win seasons in 2022 and 2024. Buffalo reached the playoffs in 8 of McDermott's 9 seasons. That includes 2017, when the Bills sneaked into the postseason on the final day to end a 17-year playoff drought that was at the time the longest active streak in North America's 4 major pro sports. The Bills became a model of stability under McDermott and Beane, who arrived in May 2017, and now they undergo their first coaching search since McDermott took over for Rex Ryan, who was fired after 2 seasons in Buffalo. McDermott was hired after spending 6 seasons as the Carolina Panthers defensive coordinator. Before that, he broke into the NFL in 1999 as a member of Andy Reid's first staff in Philadelphia. McDermott worked his way up on the ranks to become the Eagles' defensive coordinator before being fired in 2010. With Allen turning 30 in May, the Bills are expected to target an offensive-minded coach to spur an offense in which the quarterback was too often asked to carry the load. The NFL's 2024 MVP's production dropped this season. He finished with 3,668 yards and 25 touchdowns passing, his lowest output since his second season in 2019. The Bills did get a boost from running back James Cook, who became Buffalo's first player to win the NFL's rushing title since O.J. Simpson in 1976. The defense struggled in part because of a transition to youth and a rash of injuries. Though Buffalo's defense finished ranked 7th in the NFL this season, the unit had difficulty stopping the run. It's in the playoffs where the defense was criticized for collapsing too often. Buffalo allowed 30 or more points in 4 of its playoff losses. This next article is under Money Coach, and it's an opinion. The title is, "I don't have dental insurance. Do I qualify for the federal government's dental care plan?" Canadian residents who don't have access to dental benefits and have an adjusted family net income of less than $90,000 a year may qualify. And this article is written by Laura Grady, who is a personal finance reporter. And Laura Grady is a personal finance reporter for The Star. You can reach her via email at lgrady@thestar.ca. Question: My wife and I are seniors who earned a combined $70,000 last year. Do we qualify for the Canadian Dental Plan? Answer. The Canadian Dental Plan, CDCP, was introduced in 2023, is a government plan that helps pay a portion of the cost for a wide range of oral health care procedures that prevent and treat oral disease, from dental exams and cleanings to root canals and oral surgery. It is a federal government program that provides coverage for Canadian residents who do not have access to dental benefits and have an adjusted family net income of less than $90,000 a year. To qualify, you have to meet 4 requirements. First, you are a Canadian resident. 2, you don't have access to any type of dental insurance or coverage. 3, you and your spouse, common law partner, must have filed your tax returns in Canada so that your family income can be assessed for the previous year. 4, your annual adjusted family income is less than $90,000. You and your spouse's income calculations for the CDCP come from your tax returns for last year, said Anil Kishen, Kishen, Dean of the Faculty of Dentistry at the University of Toronto. If you brought in less in 2025 and expect that will impact your coverage, file your taxes promptly in the spring. For Canadians whose annual income is between $80,000 and $89,999,000, the CDCP will cover 40% of eligible oral health care services. For those in the $70,000 to $79,999 range, the plan covers 60%, and for those whose income is less than $70,000 receive 100% coverage. You can see exactly what's covered on the Government of Canada's website. In many cases, you will have a copayment based on your adjusted family net income. A copayment is the percentage of the established CDCP fees that isn't covered by the CDCP, and that you will have to pay directly to the oral health provider. Kishen says that the CDCP renewal window will likely open between March 1st and June 1st of 2026, and any changes to your coverage will kick in on June 30th. You can still apply anytime, but if you miss the renewal window, there might be a gap in your coverage. Keep in mind that if your dentist charges more than the dental benefit grid outlines, a fee guide set by Health Canada, you have to pay the difference. Kishen says this is called balanced billings. For some treatments that are less essential, your healthcare provider will seek pre-authorization, and you may or may not be approved for the coverage, Kishen says. Note that dentists are not involved in deciding who is eligible or what services are covered. Always ask your oral health provider about costs that won't be covered by the plan before accepting and receiving treatment. Find out what you'll have to pay directly. If you have dental coverage through a government social program, you can still qualify, and your coverage will be coordinated between the plans. If you think you might qualify for the CDCP, you can apply online or by calling 1-833-537-4342. Once again, that's 1-833-537-4342. Find a dentist in your area who accepts the CDCP by using the search tool created by Sun Life, which administers the CDCP. Hot tip for those on a restricted budget. Dental schools across Canada, including the University of Toronto's Faculty of Dentistry, work with the CDCP and have reduced costs, so you will have lower co-pays and avoid any balance billing, Kishen says. Money Coach is a weekly feature that helps Canadians find helpful solutions to personal finance challenges. The next article is under federal politics, and the title is Carney Considering Sending Canadian Troops to Greenland. Prime Minister Carney discussed the situation in Greenland as having common elements with other disputes that compromise territorial integrity and sovereignty, Ukraine being a very prominent example. And there's a photo of Prime Minister Mark Carney and Prime Minister of Denmark, Mette Frederiksen, Frederiksen, and they're at the Canadian Embassy in Paris on Tuesday, January 6th in 2026. And that photo was taken by Christine Muschi, M-U-S-C-H-I, Mucci, of the Canadian Press. This article is written by Tanda McCharles, who is an Ottawa bureau chief. The Canadian government is considering sending military troops to Greenland following U.S. President Donald Trump's concerns about Greenland security risk, a senior source has confirmed. The deployment could come as part of a pre-scheduled military exercises in Greenland coordinated with Denmark as an effort that several other European countries were to take part in and which have suddenly angered Trump, who threatened to raise tariffs against those nations. Or it could come as part of a NATO-led effort to address Trump's complaints that Denmark cannot defend Greenland, which leaves it vulnerable to attack by Russia, according to a Canadian official. It's a serious situation, and we're concerned about this escalation, to be absolutely clear, said Prime Minister Mark Carney on Sunday. We will always support sovereignty and territorial integrity of countries wherever their geographic location is, he said. The Prime Minister continued, the future of Greenland, decisions about the future of Greenland are for Greenland and Denmark to decide. And the security of Greenland, security is first and foremost for them, but very much falls within the responsibilities of NATO. To that end, the Canadian government has also looked at a possible NATO-adjacent operation or exercise, similar to how Canadian troops were first deployed as part of an enhanced forward presence in Latvia, Latvia, before NATO scaled up operations there, and Canada later augmented its operations to a full brigade, according to the source who spoke on condition that they not be named because they were not authorized to discuss the planning publicly. It's expected that Carney, who speaks at the World Economic Forum in Davos on Tuesday, where Trump is also expected to attend, will lead discussions with other NATO allies and the Americans about the situation in Greenland, the insider said. Carney referenced discussions about Greenland he had given 10 days ago in Paris with the NATO Secretary General about how we're going to further enhance the security umbrella. It's something that Canada is working on already and contributing to. When I say I'm working on within the broader Arctic, the so-called, let me repeat this. When I say working on within the broader Arctic, the so-called western flank and northern flank of NATO. That's the job of NATO, and that's a responsibility of NATO partners, Carney said. I have spoken to our European NATO partners and a number of them, Nordic NATO partners. I've spoken to the Prime Minister of Greenland, and there's a full commitment, not surprisingly, as it appropriate of NATO partners to the security of Greenland. Carney said that sovereignty and territorial integrity in any country in any corner of the world is inviolable. He declined to characterize Trump's musings about taking control of Greenland, reinforcing his concerns and belief that it's not necessary to continue with this episode, in our opinion, because we can strengthen the security of Greenland with the assets and the will of NATO. Carney said he discussed a series of situations with the Emir of Qatar, Tamim bin Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani, and that's TAMIN BIN HAMAD BIN KHALIFA ALTHANI, that illustrated a common element, which is threats to or compromising territorial integrity of the sovereignty, Ukraine being a very prominent example. The Canadian Prime Minister may have some ability to persuade Trump to accept a NATO-led alternative to a U.S. takeover of Greenland, as Trump has turned to Carney to sit on the so-called Board of Peace, Trump's executive committee to oversee his Middle East peace initiative. Canadian officials have not yet confirmed, however, whether Carney will sit down for a one-on-one with Trump in Davos. And Tonda McCharles is Ottawa bureau chief and a senior reporter covering federal politics. This next article is in the technology section, and the title is, "Can Someone Wearing Meta Glasses Record You Without Consent? What the Rise of Smart Glasses Mean for Your Privacy." Numerous Ontarians have reported being recorded without their consent by smart glasses after discovering videos of themselves online. And Meta glasses come with a white LED that lights up when the user is recording or taking picture, but this indicator can be missed by passersby who aren't paying attention or even modified to be disabled. And this article is written by Kevin Jiang, Jiang, who is a staff reporter. On an evening in late November, a man entered a Midtown Toronto massage parlor wearing what looked like regular sunglasses. The parlor's owner, 57-year-old Sharon McDonald, recalled passing the man and his friend as she left for the night. They called out to her, yelling, "Hey baby, hey sexy," but she ignored them. She just wanted to get home. McDonald certainly didn't expect the man to be secretly recording their interaction. Once inside, the person began asking staff for sexual favors, McDonald told the Star. That's when one of her employees noticed a light coming from his sunglasses. She asked the stranger if his glasses were recording her, but he denied it, claiming they were light sensitivity glasses, McDonald said. The man and his friend left the business soon after. It was only days later when a friend of the employee stumbled upon several familiar videos online that McDonald and her staff realized the man had recorded their entire interaction using his Meta glasses and posted the videos to his Instagram account with more than 8,000 followers, attracting hundreds of likes. We were quite horrified to see all the videos, McDonald said, adding that they began spreading posters warning of the man's activities around their neighborhood. The person's Instagram page had included dozens of candid videos of residents around McDonald's area, all tagged as having been recorded by Ray-Ban Meta glasses. Despite reporting the videos to Meta, the parent company for Instagram and Facebook, McDonald said nothing was done. They told us, nothing is being violated here. However, after the Star reached Meta for comment, the person's Instagram account was disabled for violating our policies, the company said. Eyes in the crowd. In recent months, social media has been flooded with accounts of people who were recorded without their consent by smart glasses, as well as videos taken by the devices. It's already easy enough to record others after the advent of the smartphone, said Victoria MacArthur, an associate professor of media production and design at Carleton University in Ottawa. But what makes technology like Meta glasses more problematic is their discreet appearance. They look almost identical to the standard Ray-Bans, MacArthur said. They're very inconspicuous in their design compared to the smart glasses that we used to see, but they still have the capabilities to record photos, to record videos. Julia Perreira, Perreira, a spokesperson for Meta, said that, in quotes, unlike smartphones, our glasses have LED light that activates whenever someone captures content, so it's clear the device is recording. But MacArthur retorted that this indicator can be missed by passerbys who aren't paying attention or even modified to be disabled. A quick search reveals dozens of YouTube tutorials sharing how to block the light, some with over 100,000 views. Our terms of service clearly state that users are responsible for complying with all applicable laws and for using Ray-Ban Meta glasses in a safe, respectful manner, Pereira told the Star. And as with any recording device, people shouldn't use them for engaging in harmful activities like harassment, infringing on privacy rights, or capturing sensitive information. Then there's the question of what Meta's doing with the data it collects. Earlier this year, the company removed the option to opt out of having one's voice recording stored in Meta's cloud, where they may remain for up to 1 year to help improve Meta's products, according to the company's privacy policy. Other functions, like asking Meta's AI to describe what a user is seeing, will also send the user's recording to Meta's cloud for analysis. Meta promises the media will be deleted from its cloud after 30 days, but they're not really clear on what happens with that photo when it's sent to the cloud to be analyzed by AI, according to MacArthur. As we know with Facebook, they're never 100% clear about what's happening with anything that their products share or collect or transmit, she said. Can smart glasses reveal your sensitive information? Yes, although it takes a bit of technical know-how. Anphugyen, and that's Anphugyen, did just that in 2024 when he was still a student at Harvard. In just 4 days, he and a friend created software that, utilizing facial recognition, AI, and online databases, allowed his Meta glasses to search up personal information of almost anyone he could see. You could literally look at anybody and identify who they were, everything from their name to where they worked, and even their home address. It was possible to get someone's social security number from just looking at them, Nigel told the Star. The software was actually pretty easy to build. Nigel's software utilized reverse face search engines like Pimeys, Pimeys, and FaceCheck ID, in combination with people search engines like Fast People Search and resources including online articles and voter registration databases. Nigel recommends removing yourself from these online databases where possible. His team published an article describing how to do just that. Nigel said his project was a public service announcement about the risk of AI and smart glasses could pose to privacy. But a year after their stunt, Nigel has started his own smart glass company, Mira, featuring an always-on microphone. We build smart glasses that capture the conversations from your entire day to give you a kind of second brain, he said. Fundamentally, we do record a lot of your day, but intentionally, we don't have a camera. And on the privacy side, all of those conversations are deleted. Only the transcript is saved. So it's much better for people that way. Is this even legal in Canada? It's tricky, said Tamar Israel, Director of Privacy, Surveillance, and Technology Program at Canadian Civil Liberties Association. A lot of it's going to come down to who's recording for what purpose and what context. Canada's federal privacy law governs the collection, usage, or disclosure of personal information for commercial activities, but this law does not apply to an individual doing the same for personal purposes, explained Vito Picelli, Pilecci, Senior Communications Advisor with the Office of Privacy Commission of Canada. That means, generally speaking, someone can record you without your consent in Ontario as long as it's for their personal purposes, Israel and Picelli said. But if the filmer wants to monetize the recording, like by posting it on social media, they would typically need the knowledge and consent of those being filmed. Some provinces have more stringent privacy regulations, but Ontario only has the federal law, Israel said. So the bottom line is here that there's no real restriction on this type of interaction, even if the person asked and was told that the recording wasn't happening. The OPC is aware of the privacy concerns raised by this emerging technology and remains in discussions with our international counterparts on how best to address this matter, Pacelli said. Kevin Jang is a Toronto-based staff reporter for the Stars Express desk. You can reach him at his email, which is kjing@thestar.ca.